What is up, everybody, and welcome to REIL Talks Podcast. We're going to break down what it takes to live life on your terms through entrepreneurship, specifically real estate investing. So we're going to hit it hard, the good, the bad, and the real, because that climb, as any entrepreneur knows, is never smooth. My name is Mike Singletary. I'm your host. So let's get real. Hey guys, we have a treat for you today. We have a fantastic guest on here. He has influenced so many people in the real estate space, myself included. So this is going to be an episode that I've been looking forward to. So I'm going to introduce him right now. Mike is a veteran real estate investing entrepreneur that has rehabbed and wholesaled 400 houses and has built a rental portfolio consisting of single family properties and ownership stake in over $100 million of multifamily investments. In addition to his investing experience, he's the founder of FlipNerd.com and has produced over 1,500 videos and podcasts with millions of viewers and downloads. Actually, he was probably one of the pioneers of that. Mike has coached hundreds of real estate investors directly, thousands indirectly, and is a sought-after advisor to many of America's top real estate investors. Through Investor Field, which I'm a part of, his mastermind, he leads an organization of over 150 national investors that are the top of the game. I'm very proud to be a part of that group. I've been there since day one. And if you're looking for a mastermind, I definitely highly recommend it. A lot of our guests actually come from that mastermind. And if you have watched our episodes, you'll definitely see the value that they bring. So without further ado, we'll add Mike to the stage. What's going on, man?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well. So,
good to see you, man.
Great to see you too, man. I mean, there's so many things that you have your hands in. It's almost like, where do we start, right? So let's kind of start from the beginning. One of the things I do like about you and what always, kind of represented was that you thought big. Like everything you do was at a really grand scale. And even whenever we first started with a franchise community, you were still one of the biggest ones in that group. And then when you left, you try to create something that nobody else has ever done before, right? So kind of walk us through some of those for people that don't know you.
Yeah. No, excited to be here and grateful for the opportunity to hang out with you, buddy. I'll kind of start off what you just said there about thinking big. There's some truth in that, right? It's kind of like go big or go home. Yeah. But I'll kind of start off by saying this. Not everybody has different goals. I kind of realized that early in my coaching days. Like a lot of people would say, I'm like, what are your goals? And they're like, I want to be like you. And there were times when I would hear that and I would say, man, I don't know if I want to be like me, because it's just like, it's always harder than what everybody thinks. Right.
Yeah.
And, but I think, tip that I got actually in corporate America before I ever left corporate America was from a high level guy in a company that I work for, that he said something along the lines of like, do whatever you can to save up a year's worth of salary, like as fast as possible. He was kind of advising a bunch of us were kind of right out of actually grad school.
Should I advise you to get the hell out?
What's that? No, well, the reason he said it is like, then you're not in fear. You're like willing to take risks, right? And so that is my point. Is like in corporate America, it was the same thing. You don't have to be a yes man. Like you can say, I'm not going to do that. No, I don't have to take that job because that's not the direction I want to go. It's the same thing in real estate investing. Once you get to the point to where you overcome you're paying the bills, you're not worried about paying the bills anymore. And you're kind of like, I hate to say it this way because I don't really think of our business as a casino, but you're kind of playing with the house's money. Like once you get to that point, you can take bigger risks because your overhead is covered. Your cost for your family is covered. You're not worried about paying the bills anymore. And that's kind of one of the things that I would advise people. Again, everybody has their own goals, but get to the point to where you're not essentially living paycheck to paycheck. And then you're willing to take bigger risks and swing for the fences because you're like, I'm going to strike out more, but I'm going to hit more home runs too.
Yeah. I mean, that's an excellent point because there's definitely different levels of that. I mean, I think the majority, I did some research. I think the majority of people live at $75,000 or below, right? And that's just, normal W-2 guys. And it's just really staggering to me, right?
Yeah. So that's your happy hour money for a month or something, right?
Not for me. That used to be me, man, back in the day.
I'm kidding.
Not anymore. I'm getting old now, Mike.
No,
So
no,
I
I'm
can't
joking.
handle that anymore, man.
But yeah, we both
But I
live
mean,
blessed lives, and it's hard to kind of look at like the average American or average household now. And I'm not saying this from a place of ego, which I think it's just hard for guys like you and I to like say, how do they survive on that, right? Because we want bigger, we dream bigger, and I guess that's part of it, right?
we are, and we take bigger risk, and it's really hard when you're in that space. Because piggybacking on your concept there is because getting to the place where you're not making fear-based decision making, right? And once you get out of that, for me, I don't know if this is for you. I always had this weird belief that I was going to figure it out anyways, and I would shoot for the fences, even though I probably shouldn't have at that moment, even financially, and I still did it, right? And find it, I'll just figure it out of the way to make it work. Were you like that at all, or were you more calculated?
I think I probably would err on the side of like overly confident, I guess, like early on is just like, I know I can figure this out without really knowing, and you continue to level up, right? Like there's things that probably both of us have accomplished that we weren't sure if we could do it, but we got there and we're like, oh, this is that level is like, we've moved way beyond that now. It's just because you got to get around the right people, or you have to get exposed to somebody that's doing something even bigger than you to kind of help you dream bigger or see the vision for like, oh, wow, I thought this was a big deal. And then you get there and you're like, no, this ain't shit, And it's really not about being better than anybody else or bigger than anybody else. I think for a lot of us, it's trying to beat yourself yesterday, right?
That's exactly what it is. It's your own journey. And I think that every part of the journey is important, right? Obviously, the failures are the ones that really going to teach you the biggest lesson. So we do have a segment in our podcast called Shitstorms. And so I would love to hear, like, what are some of the biggest ones that you had to go through that's kept you up at night, that has kind of rocked your world? And how'd you get out of it?
Is that where we're at now?
That's where we're at, man. Just
which shitstorm should I pull from?
Which one first? What's the first one that comes to mind?
I think, oh geez. I mean, like individual deals or like kind of a phase of life or whatever.
Whatever.
I think, I'll talk about just individual deals that I've done, right? I've been fortunate. Like I would say I'm generally pretty conservative on deals and haven't lost money on a lot of deals out of hundreds of deals, but I have lost money on some. And I probably missed out on a lot of deals too, because I was too conservative. It seemed too tight. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, my first big loss on a deal was we just overlooked a bunch of stuff. And some people will be able to identify with this, like power lines close to the house, and the pool was way worse than we thought. We actually we completely rehabbed the house, had it under contract to sell, and only found out at that point. And this was a big, like 1-story house. So it was a bigger house, higher ARV than what we would typically do at the time, kind of a sprawling house. And the whole thing had a cedar shingles under the asphalt shingles that you can't really get insured, at least in Texas. Those are normal in Colorado, but for some reason you can't get them insured in Texas. And it was literally like a $20,000 roof job. And so it was just a bunch of stuff like that, of just mistakes, right? And I think back to the making sure you're not living paycheck to paycheck, like operate at a high level where you can take some bumps and still move forward. For me, those lessons are always like, I think early on I would sit on those deals or try to find some way to like, maybe time's going to make this better. And it never does. You just have to like, just get out and move on, right? Because it doesn't help to lay in bed at night and think about it either. So if there's a lesson there, I would say like, hey, you're going to take some bumps and bruises, and you got to be able to, I think one of the benefits of a lot of people that Mike and I hang out with is people that have gotten punched in the face and they just got right back and kept running, right? And I think there's a ton of people in this industry and probably, in the whole entrepreneurial world that get hit in the face and they don't get back up. And I think what we tend to do is appreciate entrepreneurs that are ruthless enough to say, I'm not afraid to get hit in the face. I don't really like it, but I know it's going to happen, and I'm just going to get right back up and keep running into the shitstorm, if you will.
Well, I think that I love that when you say, I know it's going to happen, because you're right. It's just a part of the process, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that It's inevitable. Exactly. And one of the things that you've done is that you've just seemed to skill stack, because you were never, you weren't this level of a marketer when you first started, right? You obviously came out, or how did that happen?
Yeah.
But you're a heck of a marketer.
A marketer. Yeah. So, what's interesting is, I've won a lot of awards for marketing, and I still think I'm like terrible. Like I think that some of it is just never being content. Right. And so I think, this kind of came up recently. Like somebody was talking about, they brought up something that I did that didn't work out. And at first I was like, I was a little weird. I was kind of embarrassed. I was like, yeah, but it's like, you know what? I mean, if I look back, like I've definitely got more failures than wins. Like, I mean, I think that's part of it is just, trying stuff, testing stuff. And I probably err more on the side of like having an idea, wanting to try it and just going after it and seeing if it works. And if it doesn't, just moving on. And I think there's some people that, will have an idea they sit on forever. I mean, you see the sign right here.
Yeah.
Ideas mean nothing without execution. Yeah. Right. And this is one that you probably have one of these too, Mike, where some of these solid Investor Fuel members is that there's a ton of people out there with ideas, and the ideas are worthless unless you go do something about it. And so I think, back to the marketing stuff, it's just testing and trying a lot of stuff and seeing what resonates. And I think if I've kind of gotten better over the years at marketing, it's like I found my my kind of zone of I'm not really trying to go. In the past, it was like, I've got some idea that's like way outside of what I'm doing right now. I'm going to go try to do something totally different. And now I'm like, I just want to innovate inside of the businesses I already have and try to make them better, add more value, whatever, inside of what I'm already doing instead of like something totally different, which I have definitely done in the past. So just trying to, what's that?
So we've all done that.
Yeah. It's like evolution for me. It used to be like, I think about this there up until the past couple of years, it would be common for people to say, you must be what are you doing that's new? Like what's going on? Because every time people would talk to me, I was doing something new. And now I'm like, for the past a year or two, I think my typical answer is, man, I'm not doing anything new. I'm just trying to do what I do better.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. And for me, it's, I'm knocking on the door of 50 here coming up this year. And it's like, at some point you're kind of like, what's it all for? What's the end game? And I was like, I just want to do cool shit with cool people and serve the people that I like to be around better and better and better. I don't really want to do anything all that new, honestly. I like what I do. It's taken years to kind of get to that point to where it's not just a business that makes money. It's like something I actually love to do. Yeah. And so if I could look at like the next 10 years of my life, it's getting to that point to where I'm doing more of the things that I love to where it's not a so-called job. It's just doing what I love. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously you have, Investor Fuel, Investor Machine, FlipNerd, and then the apartment syndications or ownership. What is your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I mean, I would say this, Investor Fuel is my favorite because it's me. It's like a club where we're all hanging out together, Yeah. It's like everybody's just hanging out and having a good time and helping each other and dealing with problems and living life together and helping each other solve problems. And so Investor Machine is great. We have a lot of the same avatar, a lot of the same customers in Investor Machine. In fact, some of the exact same people that are in Investor Fuel and Investor Machine, but it's more of a product, or it's really more of a service business, right? And so I'm not interacting directly with our customers over there. Yeah. And we're the mastermind. I literally am in a room with people hanging out or on the phone or on Zoom calls or whatever, just hanging out with people that honestly, I would count most of people that I would put on the list of like my best friends in the world are members of my mastermind,
That's awesome.
So it's fun, right?
It is, man. I look forward to it. I mean, I remember the very first one, and I got to tell you, it made a big impact on me. There's no doubt about it. And some of my best friends in this industry came from that group as well. And I know I went away for a couple of years, but then I came back.
So where'd you back in?
Well, I never really. Well, I paused because I didn't want to travel. But if you're looking for a way to level up and you're an investor, and I would definitely look into Investor Fuel. It's a fantastic community. I'm part of other masterminds as well. Each one of them has a very distinct feel to it. There's no doubt about it. But Mike nails it on the head. This feels a lot more like a family and buddies, and you go there and you're able to, really kind of get raw with people. Sometimes on the stage, but more than anything one-on-one, on the backside. So if you're interested in that, I'll have a link down below, and then you could look into it. So let me ask you this, Mike. What are you excited about now, like moving forward? I know you're talking about, hey, I just want to get better at what I do, but what is it that you get up and you're like, dude, I'm really jazzed about growing this or doing this?
The past year that we've been through, I think everybody has had struggles, right? There's some people that have had their best year ever, but on average, I think the kind of mature business probably had some struggles over the past year. And so I think back to that comment about evolving and getting better inside of what I'm already doing, we have like leveled up like nothing I've ever seen before, where the businesses I have are, in the past, we've had kind of competitors, I guess. And I know most of my competitors, we're friends. Like we all kind of get along, right? On some level, I compete with you. Like we all kind of are competing with some way, right? And we collaborate too. So it's this weird kind of incestuous thing, right? And I'm not doing this for anything other than to serve our customers, but the level ups we've done at Investor Fuel and Investor Machine, some of which you may not even know about yet, Mike, are like nothing anybody's ever seen before. Like these are big freaking things that are just like, it's not like we just got a little bit better. Like we're 10X and shit,
That's
and
awesome.
So, and it's really, it's back to using that word evolution again. It just forces you to, over the past year, people either went out of the business completely, they curled up in a ball and cried about their situation and didn't do much about it, just kind of waited for the storm to pass, or they used the opportunity to just say, how can issues like a market downturn like never impact me again? And how can I create things that help my customers more than anything else that they never even thought of some of this stuff, like how it might help them level up, right? And so we used it to innovate. We used the time to innovate. It was a painful period, but so that's what I'm excited about. Is just I actually just got off of inside of Investor Machine. We have a town hall meeting once a quarter. We had a bunch of our team from all over the globe on there. And we just announced like a whole bunch of stuff that we're doing, and not stuff that we're going to do, like stuff that we're already doing. We've already launched it. If you didn't know, this is what we're doing. And it's just huge level ups that are
Let's
really.
talk about it. Are you ready? Are you available? Can you talk about it?
Sure. I could talk about like inside of an Investor Machine, for example, which is a lead. Like I really hate to use this phrase, but we generate leads for real estate investors, but we're really not what I would call an agency.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, one of the things that we're doing now is we track and we send millions of pieces of mail a month for our customers. So, but we're not a mail house. We're really a data company that does direct mail for people. So, and we have all channels now: pay-per-click, SEO, Facebook advertising, and some other things as well. So we really have kind of all channels. But an innovation thing that we've done is now we track. We use our phone numbers on the mailers, and we track response rate and open rate, and we actually listen to 100% of the calls that come through our customer now for quality control, because we'd have people saying, hey, the advertising is not working, and we had no visibility. And we're like, gosh, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, can we talk about it? Or we have no visibility, right? But now we do things like, well, we know if customers are answering the phone live, 20% of the time. And now instead of, and we're not using it to be able to say this, hey, it's not working. No, it's you. You're not even answering your phone. We're proactively able to go to your customers and say, hey, man, looks like you missed 3 calls this week. Like, what's going on here? You got to fix this, because this will make the advertising work better if you just answer the phone like you're supposed to, right? But to take it to another level, because we do this for hundreds of people across the country, we're able to see not only which piece of mail is working best, so like response rate, which is what most real estate investors look at, is what is my response rate. We actually score every call, because we listen to every call, on 15 criteria to know a whole bunch of things, all intended to go back to our customer and say, here's where you need to level up on the phone, whether it's a scripting issue or whatever. And but we're able to determine if there was a positive outcome. An appointment is set, they're interested in an offer, like things like that. And so we know that there's pieces of mail out there that are working really, people will say they're working really well. Or like my response rates doubled when I started using, I'll just give you a very specific answer. Our number one response rate is the check mailer. And a lot of people moved to that last year. They send out a check.
The range one? Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody loves that, right? Because the response rate is really high. Yeah. But here's what I can tell you. It's actually number 6 on our list for all of our customers nationwide as to what has the most positive outcomes, most likely to turn into a deal and turn into profit. So just because the response rate is high doesn't mean it has the highest ROI, really ROAS, return on ad spend, or ROI on your mail on the back end. And so now we know exactly, because we track this nationwide on every piece of mail, we know exactly which mailer types are working, and we know exactly, soon we'll know the exact ROAS as soon as our customers start reporting their profitability each deal to us. So we'll know ROAS by channel and be able to manage their whole marketing. Basically, we'll be their whole marketing team for them. But that's pretty insightful, right?
CRM, is it everything within? Did you build out everything and they're using your CRM so you could completely
close the loop? We haven't done a CRM, but we do have a whole software development team that's built out some pretty cool stuff. So we're agnostic to CRM because like everybody, most people have a love-hate relationship with their CRM. They either love it or hate it, but the last thing they want to do in the world is change CRMs again. And so we don't require that, but we have other ways to kind of get those insights.
That's awesome. That sounds like a massive value. So you don't have to tell me the pieces because, I understand that you put a lot of time and effort into it. Can you give me some insight on maybe what marketing channels are you seeing working the best? Maybe top couple of them, 2 or 3.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. I was just talking about some marketing stuff that I'm going to create, answering this very question: which channel, what's your favorite marketing channel, right? And this is very much what I believe, because I don't think that that's a good question, because I think it's all of them together. And here's why: like people get mail, or they see your TV ad, or maybe they get a text or an SMS from you. Most people that are calling and texting are probably not openly sharing their brand to try to like hide a little bit. But if I were to get a mailer for something of high value, the first thing I would do is go Google it. Like I would literally go research them, right? And so the important thing is that essentially just to acknowledge that mail, for example, makes SEO and pay-per-click work better. And pay-per-click and SEO make mail work better. Like all your channels work together, because there's some belief that, that the average customer, this is kind of outside of real estate, but the average customer that does anything high dollar spends several hours researching that brand, or if it's a car, you're driving it or test driving it, going to the showroom. Like you have to have all these touch points when you make decisions on, big decisions. It could be high dollar stuff, or selling a house. For a lot of people that we buy houses from, that's the biggest decision they've ever made in their life, right? Or one of them is to sell that house, right? And so it's not uncommon that they get your mail, and even if you don't have a website on them, they're going to go look for you. And if they Google you and they don't find you, they're going to find your competitors, right?
Right.
So all these things really need to work together. And so, and I think there's also channels, texting and cold calling are probably the most notable ones, especially texting, that's just gotten hammered over the past year, right? Mm-hmm. And so your business is pretty fragile if you're only using one channel. And on top of that, I'll say that me personally, I've kind of said in the past, I hope to never have to sell my house to a dude like me. Like we don't ever want to be in a distressed situation where we have to sell our house for maybe a fraction of the market value, right? But the reality is I don't check the mail at my house. It usually, most of it goes right into the trash. I haven't watched network TV in years and years. I'm more of a Netflix and Prime kind of guy. Mm-hmm. If your phone number is not in my contacts, I have an app that my phone doesn't even ring. It literally goes right into like a spam folder essentially. But texting, I get everything. And so, so my point is like, most people aren't advertising in a channel where I would see it. And again, I'm not hopefully the avatar that most of our people that are listening to this are going after. But my point is that, if it was my grandma, like she watches network TV all day long, right? And probably looks at every piece of mail. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have a mobile phone. She doesn't have a smartphone, so wouldn't even get a text, right? And so we sometimes think that our customers want to be advertised to or are as receptive to advertising the way that we are. But the reality is everybody receives a different message differently. And that's why it's important to have different channels. Is some people don't watch TV at all. Some people don't have TVs in their house. Some people use PO boxes. And I mean, we had a PO box service recently that anything that looked like junk mail, they just shredded it so we didn't have to deal with it, which the type of mail we send out would fall into that bucket of junk mail, right? And so anyway, I think it's important to have different channels because different people that we're marketing to respond differently. And that's just the initial touch point. Some of them need to hear, see, feel you from kind of hit in from land, sea, and air as well. And that's you can't name any major brand in America that we all would respect, like Coca-Cola or something. Like, what if they got rid of like branding in gas stations and they didn't advertise at the movies and they just sent text messages? Like, they would never do that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to have kind of omnipresence, if you will, especially if you're trying to grow your brand.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, I think you definitely have to have outbound, inbound strategy involved. But let's talk with a new guy that's like starting and doesn't have the ability to pay for a large direct mail piece or stuff like that. What would be your advice for that guy?
So that guy, the question is like, how much money does he have, right? And so it's like I think for a lot of folks, they might have to get started with a little. I've kind of said it this way in the past. If you have more time than money, you probably need to hustle a little bit harder and do things that are a little more about kind of what I'll call a hustle tactic. So probably more texting and cold calling type activities. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people use bandit signs anymore, but when I was coming up, there were always like people that are putting bandit signs everywhere. Yeah. And so you might have to hustle more to get to that point, right? But I think for a lot of folks, and I primarily work with the more of the pro investor, like the full-time investor, right? And so still do some coaching and things as well. But if you're new, like, you just have to hustle harder if you don't have money. If you have more money than time, then you should focus on more inbound channels because you don't have the time to go chase people. You want them to come to you, right? I would say, irregardless, just if we're talking to that person right now and giving them some advice, it's like reinvest all of your profits until you can get to the point to where you can afford to spend a lot more on advertising. Because I'm biased because I generate leads for people, but I work with pros, and I'm telling you, the top real estate investors in the country, the people that are really doing volume, are willing to spend a lot on marketing. They're not looking for ways to cut marketing. They want to be efficient. They're looking for ways to spend more on marketing because they know that that's the driver of the whole ship.
That is 100%. Absolutely. It's so funny because we went through a dip whenever the interest rates changed. I think, what was that, a year and a half ago or something like that?
Yep.
And in our business, I think you and I have talked about this. In our business, in Skipforce, it literally cut revenue by like 30% in 1 month. Like, everybody just stopped advertising, right? Yeah. Which I thought was crazy and a great opportunity because we just doubled down, knowing that there's not as much volume out there anymore. But I think that's the first thing that people do I don't understand. I understand why, because they're in that state of fear, right? Yep. And they want to cut something, and they thinking that, marketing is the first thing you should cut. And it's really obviously the last thing you should
cut. It's the last. Yeah. I believe you and I are the same there. Yep.
Yeah. Let me ask you, because you mentioned earlier that some of your, the highest level investors, they're actually thriving. They're, having the best years, right? Have you seen any common denominators with them and how they're able to elevate their business and others aren't?
I think, because I've clearly seen this. I'm sure you have too. In Investor Fuel, my mastermind, we have a lot of members, and there's people that are like, there's people that went out of business. I mean, quite frankly, or they went into another industry. There's some people that struggle, and there's people that are like literally presenting, and they're like, this was my best year ever, was 2023. And I've put a lot of thought into this, like, and we've talked a lot about this. It really came down to the strength of them as an operator, right? Because I feel like, we've been in a rising market since I started in 2000. I mean, I started in 2008. I don't know if it was considered a rising market then, but let's just say for at least 12 years, it was a rising market, right? And so you didn't have to be a great operator. Like, you had to be good at probably acquisitions, or you just hustled and worked really hard, and you almost couldn't lose.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people realize that they're effectively their cheese got moved and they didn't really know how to deal with the new market. And, just like I talked about up front of like, we use that time to innovate. I would try to encourage a lot of people that are listening to this to say, when you have a downtime, like use that to innovate and get stronger, whether it's training or, whatever. But, I do think it's a lot of the people that kind of struggled the most were probably, obviously the heaviest with a little sloppy with overhead. Like they weren't kind of lean and mean. And it's important, I think in a rising market that happens. You start off lean and mean, and then you get a little fat. And next thing you know, you're getting like $20,000 credit card bills for subscriptions and stuff you have. And you're like, what the hell is this? I thought we canceled that 6 months ago. Right.
Yeah.
We're all guilty of that, to getting a little bit sloppy. But I do think that for a lot of people that this isn't, one size fits all. Everybody has a different situation. But I think that the two most common things are, it's people that the first thing they did was cut their marketing, because when you cut your marketing, by the way, it doesn't hurt you now. It hurts you over the next 3 to 6 months. I mean, that's really everything you're doing now is feeding the pipeline of people that might be interested, and you have to follow up with them, and they need to check with their brother and, and all that stuff. And so you're really hurting your pipeline in the quarters to come. So they either cut their advertising, or they were a one-man or one-woman band where they were doing a lot of things and they just weren't a good enough operator to pivot when that happened. They didn't really have a good team in place that could just keep plowing forward, right? So those are a lot of reasons, but those are two of the common reasons, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I was just about to do a post on that because it's so true. Whenever you kill your marketing, it takes you twice as long to get it back up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you should be obsessed with your pipeline and making sure your pipeline's full and stuff like that. And obviously you're in the lead gen business as well. Every lead sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every lead sucks.
They do. Yeah. You're mostly.
If you expect somebody to just call you and go, "Hey man, Mike, hey, take this off my hands for pennies on the dollar." Yeah. I mean, now that happens every once in a while. If you
play the game enough, it happens. But that's the typical.
But that's not going to pay the bills, right? That happens when you're doing a lot of marketing and then that one just happens to fall on your lap. But typically leads suck and you got to work them, right? And then if you cut that pipeline, momentum is a thing. It takes you twice as much effort to get that momentum built back up again.
Yeah. Think about this. Like the people that we typically buy houses from, like we don't want anybody to be in distress. I don't want somebody to like have health problems or get divorced, or like none of us want those things. But a lot of the people that we buy houses from have been distressed for at least a couple of years, up to a couple decades. Like we've all bought the house that's been dilapidated for like 40 years. Like it's never been updated, right? It was a problem 30 years ago, but it just wasn't as big enough of a problem. It took something else happening. A spouse died 20 years later, and then they couldn't pay the taxes anymore. And like things just kind of piled on, right? And so we want this. I mean, I don't know about you. Like I kind of make this joke that every day it's kind of Amazon Christmas at my house. Like we like that immediate gratification. Like we want to order something from Amazon. We all want to pop a pill and lose 50 pounds next week. And that's just not how this business works. It's really not how the real world works outside of Amazon. Is that we're marketing to people that have been struggling for years or decades. And it's not often that they're going to make a decision like that. So what you're trying to do with marketing is just start that conversation, nurture that over a long period of time. So whenever the inevitable happens and they need to sell their house at a discount because they haven't kept it up or because of some other reason that's a little more severe, you just need to be there waiting in the wings as the person that kept following up, kept checking in on them, genuinely wanted to help them. And then you're first in line to get a crack at that deal, right? So I want people to think of marketing more like that. It's not, can I call somebody and close them today? One call close. Like that's not really how this works, right? You have to think of more like a farmer. Like I'm planting seeds that at some point down the line, I'm going to be able to harvest that.
That is 100%, man. Mike, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can they find you?
The biggest thing is, probably on Facebook. I spend too much time there, but you can find me on Facebook. I try to put some value posts out pretty often there. Of course, I know Mike's going to share a link for Investor Fuel. We have an amazing community, and if you want to hang out with the one and only Mike Singletary a little bit more, that'd be a good thing to check out. But yeah, probably online or learn a little bit more about Investor Fuel.
Yeah, we'll definitely put links to all your stuff on the show notes. But once again, thanks, Mike. Appreciate you.
Yeah,
everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. So that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and I hope you received value from this episode. If so, please share this podcast to your brothers and sisters, and also hook up with us on Facebook, IG, and YouTube at REIL Talks. That's REIL Talks. Until next time, my friends, keep it cool, keep it real, and peace out.